See, we live in a world where people, especially women, are being told, give more, do more, be available, check in, follow up. People value what's scarce, be less available, more valuable when you focus on yourself, your energy becomes rare and desirable. Let me break something down for you that's so simple, yet so often overlooked. And it's this: people value what is scarce. You might not realize it, but the moment you start becoming less available, you become more valuable. Now, I'm not talking about playing games or being manipulative. I'm talking about understanding a basic principle of human psychology and economics: supply and demand. The more accessible something is, the less people pursue it. The rarer it is, the more they desire it. See, when you're constantly reaching out, checking in, showing up every time he calls, what you're actually doing without knowing it is flooding the market. Your energy becomes overexposed. Your presence becomes routine, and routine rarely gets respected. But when you begin to redirect that same energy toward yourself, your goals, your growth, your mental clarity, you automatically become scarce in the best way. Not absent, scarce. Scarcity doesn't mean you disappear. It means you become intentional, you move with purpose. You protect your presence like it's premium, because it is. This is something that, when you understand it, will shift your whole outlook on relationships, not just romantic ones, but every interaction in your life. People don't value you because you're always there. They value you when they know your time, your attention, your spirit. Those things aren't given lightly. And when you begin to live with that awareness, something changes. You no longer seek validation. You become it. You no longer chase connection. You create gravity. Let's go deeper for a second. Philosophically, every human being is wired to chase meaning. And meaning isn't found in what's convenient. Meaning is found in what must be earned. That's why we respect mentors, leaders, high achievers. They've developed themselves to the point where their presence carries weight. You can feel it when they walk into a room. And that's the level of energy you cultivate when you stop trying to be constantly present in someone else's life and start becoming undeniably present in your own. Now watch this. When you pull your energy back and focus it inward on your education, your discipline, your boundaries, people start to notice. Why? Because your absence triggers reflection. The silence speaks louder than words ever could. Men begin to ask questions. Where did she go? Why isn't she checking in? What's she working on? And that's when the tables turn, because now you're not chasing. They're observing. You've shifted from being available to being admirable. That's the kind of power you want, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself, the kind that draws people not because you're demanding attention, but because you've become the kind of person whose attention is worth earning. So remember this: if your energy is everywhere, your value is nowhere. But when your focus becomes sacred, your presence becomes priceless. Let that sink in. Be scarce, be sacred, be a force that can't be ignored. Masculine respect is earned through self. Mastery men respect what they can't control. Elevating yourself earns respect, not chasing attention. Let's talk about something most people misunderstand when it comes to relationships, especially between men and women. Respect, particularly masculine respect, is not given freely. It's not granted because of how much you care, how much you give, or how often you're available. Respect is earned through self-mastery. And if there's one thing I've seen over and over again, it's that men don't truly value what they can predict, control, or take for granted. They value what stands firm in its own strength, what doesn't need them, but chooses itself first. There's a reason why the people we admire most in life are those who have mastered themselves. Athletes, entrepreneurs, spiritual leaders, they're not respected because of what they say. They're respected because of what they do consistently, because of the discipline, the vision, the restraint. And when a woman starts walking in that kind of alignment, she commands a different type of energy. She no longer gets dragged into emotional games, because her identity is not attached to who's calling or not calling. Her confidence is rooted in clarity, not chaos. Psychologically, people respond to certainty. When you master yourself, your emotions, your impulses, your habits, you become unshakable. That's power, that's peace. That's the woman who can look a man in the eyes and not flinch when he pulls away. Why? Because she's not afraid of losing him. She's committed to not losing herself. And here's the truth. Men may not always say it, but they feel it when they're in the presence of a woman who's done the work. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. She's not triggered by disrespect because she doesn't stay in environments where respect is optional. She doesn't need to prove her worth because she's already living like someone who knows her value. That's the difference. Think of it this way. In any healthy masculine, feminine dynamic, there's a gravitational pull toward polarity. A man in his true masculine respects structure, discipline, and challenge. When you embody those things within yourself, not through dominance, but through self-control, he recognizes it, and if he doesn't rise to meet it, he'll fall off. But either way, you're not shaken. You're too focused on your mission to be derailed by emotional inconsistency. So this isn't about making men respect you by withholding or playing games. This is about becoming the kind of woman who respects herself so deeply that anyone who enters her life has to level up just to stay. And here's the closing truth. You don't demand masculine respect. You embody the kind of excellence that makes it the only option. Start there, the rest will follow. Personal development creates magnetic confidence, growth breeds confidence, and confidence draws people in naturally. Let me give you something most people don't understand when it comes to attraction. It's not about looks, it's not about charm, and it sure isn't about how much you give to someone. It's about energy. More specifically, it's about the confidence that comes from your personal development. The deeper your growth, the stronger your presence. People don't fall in love with your potential. They're drawn to the evidence of who you are becoming. Confidence that's rooted in real development, that's magnetic. See, when you've been putting in the work, internally and externally, your energy shifts. You carry yourself differently. You walk into rooms with a quiet authority. You don't need to announce that you've leveled up. Your posture, your tone, your decisions, they speak for you. And here's the beautiful part. That kind of energy doesn't just attract. It repels what doesn't belong. That's when you stop chasing and start choosing, because let's be real, confidence that's rooted in self, deception, posting quotes, faking peace, pretending to be unbothered, that's not confidence. That's performance, and performance drains you. But when your confidence is built from actually investing in yourself, reading the books, applying the lessons, setting the boundaries, honoring your body, your mind, your spirit, that confidence is sustainable, that confidence compounds, and that's the kind of confidence men feel even when you're not around. Psychologically, we're all wired to look for strength in others. It's biological. A woman who has anchored herself in growth, in excellence, in self-awareness. She becomes a mirror that exposes a man's lack of discipline or challenges him to rise. That's why some pull away, not because you did anything wrong, but because your development holds up a standard. You don't even have to say a word. Your growth speaks in silence. It's in how you move, how you say no, how you choose peace over chaos. And the most powerful thing about it, it's not even about men, it's about you. You start to like yourself. You start to feel proud of who you're becoming. You walk past the mirror and you don't just see beauty, you see progress. You see a woman who's honoring her future. That kind of self, love doesn't scream. It radiates, and here's the truth. People can sense when you've done the work. It's spiritual, it's psychological, and when they feel that kind of confidence, that grounded, non-performative, disciplined confidence, it draws them in. Not because you were trying to attract them, but because you stopped trying to convince them and started becoming you. So let me leave you with this. When you build yourself, confidence isn't something you wear, it's something you are. And that version of you, she doesn't chase, she aligns, she attracts. Go build her. Purpose over people. When you prioritize you, they prioritize you. Purpose is attractive. Focus on your mission and the right ones follow. Let's clear something up once and for all. You are not here to revolve around anyone else's world. You are here to build your own. When you truly start prioritizing yourself, your purpose, your growth, your calling, something shifts in the atmosphere. People feel it, especially men, because when a woman locks in on her mission, she becomes harder to distract, harder to manipulate, and almost impossible to forget. And here's the irony. The moment you stop centering your life around someone else, they often start centering theirs around you. Why? Because purpose creates gravity. Purpose is attractive in a way nothing else is. It communicates direction, discipline, and identity. People are drawn to someone who knows where they're going, because most people are still trying to figure that out. So when a man sees that you're not waiting around for him to pick a path, but you've already chosen yours, that gets his attention on a whole different frequency. Now, that's not about being cold or dismissive. It's not about saying, I don't need anyone. That's not strength. That's unresolved pain. What I'm talking about is alignment. You were designed to fulfill a purpose bigger than relationship status. You were created to be a solution in this world, not a placeholder in someone else's indecision. When you start waking up with intention, investing in your craft, pouring into your faith, your fitness, your finances, you automatically rise. And when you rise, you don't have to ask people to treat you differently. They adjust or they disappear. And here's where the psychological shift happens. You stop seeing relationships as the source of your identity, and you start viewing them as a reflection of your standards. You stop asking, why hasn't he called? And start asking, is this aligned with where I'm going? That's maturity. That's elevation. And that's when the dynamic flips. Because people chase presence that is rooted in purpose. They admire what they can't distract. Philosophically, this is rooted in an ancient truth. When you become whole, you stop orbiting. Wholeness doesn't chase. Wholeness builds, and in building, you become undeniable, not because of what you say, but because of what you represent. Purpose is louder than any emotional plea. You don't have to beg to be chosen when you're already chosen by destiny. And if a man can't see that, it's not your job to shrink. It's your job to keep building. You were never meant to pause your purpose for someone who hasn't even found theirs. So let me close with this truth. When you prioritize purpose over people, the right people will prioritize you. Stay focused, stay grounded, and let your mission speak for itself. Silence speaks, your absence can teach what words never will. Detaching doesn't mean losing. It means showing your worth in your silence and success. Let me tell you something that may sound simple, but it's deeply powerful. Silence teaches what words never will. In this culture of instant replies and constant contact, we've forgotten the strength of restraint. But the moment you stop explaining yourself, defending your worth, or trying to prove your value, you step into a new kind of power. Because absence, when it's rooted in purpose, not pettiness, forces people to reflect. You see, presence is often taken for granted. When you're always available, always responding, always showing up, even when you're not being met with the same energy, what you're doing is lowering your standard of reciprocity. But when you pull back, not to punish, but to protect your peace, you begin to shift the dynamic. Suddenly, your silence becomes a mirror. A man begins to feel the void where your energy used to be, and in that space, a lesson begins to unfold. This isn't about playing games. This is about understanding human psychology. We only start reflecting when the noise stops. Think about it. You don't really start missing someone when they keep showing up. You start missing them when they stop explaining. When they stop reminding, when they stop being available, that's when the questions start. Did I lose something valuable? Was I taking her for granted? Why does her absence feel louder than her presence ever did? Because real strength doesn't need to yell. Real power doesn't beg. It withdraws with clarity, and that silence it teaches. It creates space for accountability, for awareness, for the realization that you are not someone who lingers where you're not honored. You are someone who moves with intention, and if the connection doesn't align with your purpose, you don't force it. You release it. Philosophically, this is about detachment, not from love, but from outcome. It's about being so grounded in who you are that you can let go without falling apart. That kind of composure is rare, and what's rare becomes revered. The man who took you for granted while you were available will often realize your value only in your absence. And that's not your responsibility to orchestrate, it's your responsibility to allow. Don't interrupt the process of someone learning your value by constantly explaining it. Let them sit with your silence. Let them meet the version of you who doesn't chase, doesn't overfunction, doesn't fill every gap just to feel connected. You're not here to teach people through effort. You're here to inspire growth through elevation. And sometimes the loudest way to elevate is to exit. So here's what I'll leave you with. Sometimes your silence is the sermon. Let it preach. And while they reflect, you keep rising. You are the prize, and a prize doesn't chase. It's chosen. Becoming your best self makes you irresistible. Not by trying, but by being. Here's what most people miss when they start focusing on themselves. The evolution isn't just about becoming more confident, more attractive, more successful. It's about becoming more whole. Because wholeness isn't the absence of loneliness, it's the presence of alignment. It's when your mind, your spirit, your actions, and your vision all begin to move in harmony. And when that happens, when you truly begin evolving internally first, then externally, men begin to sense it. Not just because of how you look, but because of who you've become. And here's the part that's so powerful. You don't have to say a word about your evolution. They can feel it, because personal development changes your aura, it alters your decisions, it shows up in your habits, your standards, your pace. You stop tolerating things that drain your energy. You start attracting conversations that sharpen your thinking. You begin investing in experiences that expand your vision, and slowly but surely you start standing in a different kind of light. See, most people try to change externally to get attention, but transformation doesn't start with your body, it starts with your beliefs. When you believe you are worthy, not because someone said so, but because you've built a life that proves it, you become unshakable. Your emotional center moves from reaction to intention. You're no longer easily triggered because you're rooted in something deeper than temporary validation. And that's when people start to notice. Now, let's be honest, not everyone will celebrate your evolution. Some will resist it, some will question it, and some, especially those who once had easy access to you, will start to feel insecure about it. Why? Because your growth makes their complacency uncomfortable. Your evolution confronts the parts of them that are still stagnant. But don't let that pull you back. Let it remind you that you're moving forward. Philosophically speaking, this is what the ancient thinkers meant when they talked about telos. Your ultimate purpose, your potential fulfilled. The more you align with that telos, the more your presence becomes prophetic. You start becoming a living example of what's possible when someone chooses healing over hurt, purpose over people, pleasing and growth over comfort. And when a man sees that, he either levels up or he falls back. But either way, you're not waiting, you're building, you're evolving. You're stepping into a version of yourself that doesn't need to be chased or validated or approved, because you've already been refined in the fire of your own transformation. So here's the truth I want you to carry. Your evolution is your elevation. Don't explain it, don't dilute it, just become it. Because when you fully evolve, you don't have to be remembered. You'll be impossible to forget.